The billionaire ate my $200,000 wedding feast, then refused to pay, so I starved her next event. The wedding was perfect. It was held at a private estate in the Hamptons. We served 300 guests. We served A5 Wagyu beef flown in from Japan, white truffles from Alba, and bluefin tuna that cost more than a Honda Civic. At midnight, as the fireworks went off, I wiped the sweat from my forehead. My team and I had worked for 72 hours straight. We had pulled off the culinary event of the year. The next morning, I walked into the library to present the final invoice to Mrs. Victoria Vance, the billionaire heiress who hired me. The total outstanding balance was $215,000. This money wasn't just for me. It was to pay the farmers, the fishermen, and my staff who had slept in their cars to make this happen. Victoria looked at the invoice. She took a sip of her green juice. Then she smiled, tore the paper in half, and dropped it into the fireplace. "I'm not paying this, Marco," she said casually. The soup was lukewarm, and I didn't like the way the waiters looked at my guests. "Consider the deposit you already received as full payment. Now get out." She was stealing 200 grand from me because she knew she could. She knew suing her would take years and cost me a fortune in legal fees. She thought I was just a help. But Victoria made a mistake. She forgot that in the world of high-end luxury, money isn't the only currency. Relationships are. And while she had the money, I had the relationships. She didn't know that she had a massive charity gala coming up in 2 weeks, an event where she needed to impress the most powerful people in New York. She thought she could fire me. She didn't realize that I am the gatekeeper to every truffle, every oyster, and every bottle of champagne in this city. Here's the story of how I put a billionaire on the blacklist and turned her glamorous gala into a fast food nightmare. To be a private chef for the ultra-rich is to sell your soul one plate at a time. My name is Marco. I trained in Paris, worked in 3-star Michelin restaurants in London, and eventually moved to New York to start my own luxury catering company. Working for Victoria Vance was supposed to be my big break. The Vance family owned half the real estate in Manhattan. Victoria was a socialite, an influencer, and a philanthropist. On Instagram, she posted photos of her organic, sustainable lifestyle. In reality, she was a monster. Living in her mansion for the summer season was like living in a psychological experiment. She would demand a 5-course tasting menu at 2 a.m., eat one bite, and then throw the plate at the wall because it was too salty. She forced my sous chef to drive 2 hours into the city just to buy a specific brand of sparkling water that she claimed tasted less angry. But the money was good, or at least the promise of money was good. The contract for her daughter's wedding was massive. $500,000 total budget, $250,000 up front for expenses, and the remaining balance due upon completion. The upfront money barely covered the ingredients. The profit, my salary, my staff's bonus, the rent for my kitchen was all in the final payment. The week leading up to the wedding was hell. Victoria changed the menu 4 times. "No salmon," she screamed on Tuesday. "Salmon is for poor people. I want sea bass, Chilean sea bass." "But madam," I explained, "sustainability laws limit the catch. To get 300 portions by Saturday will cost triple." "I don't care about the cost, Marco," she yelled. "Just get it done. Put it on the final bill." So I did. I called in favors. I had fish flown in on private charters. I sourced vintage caviar from a supplier who usually only sells to royalty. I personally guaranteed the payments to these vendors. My reputation was the collateral. The wedding night arrived. It was spectacular. The food was flawless. The guests, senators, celebrities, hedge fund managers came into the kitchen to shake my hand. Even Victoria's husband, a quiet man who looked like he was constantly apologizing for existing, told me it was the best meal of his life. I went to bed exhausted but proud. I had fronted nearly $150,000 of my own credit to cover the last-minute changes. I assumed that a woman worth billions would pay her bill. I was naive. I forgot the first rule of dealing with old money. They stay rich by never spending their own. When Victoria tore up my invoice and threw it in the fire, I didn't scream. I stood very still. The fire crackled, consuming the paper that represented my livelihood. "Victoria," I said, my voice steady, "I personally guaranteed the vendors. If you don't pay, I go bankrupt. My staff doesn't get paid." "That sounds like a you problem," she replied, checking her nails. "You overcharged me. You were slow. Be grateful I don't sue you for emotional distress. My daughter was stressed because the appetizers were 3 minutes late." "The appetizers were late because you insisted on a photo shoot in the kitchen," I reminded her. "Get out," she snapped, "or I call security." I walked out. I sat in my delivery van, shaking. My phone started ringing. It was the truffle supplier. He wanted to know when the wire was coming. Then the butcher called. I realized then that Victoria did this on purpose. She knew the margins. She knew the pressure. This was a game to her. She got a free wedding, and I got the bill. I called my lawyer. He was honest. "Marco, we can sue for breach of contract, but she has a team of 10 lawyers on retainer. They will bury us in paperwork. They will delay the trial for 3 years. By the time we get to court, you'll be out of business." I drove back to the city, feeling defeated. I stopped at a wholesale market to pick up some supplies for a small dinner party I had the next day. I ran into Jean-Luc. Jean-Luc is a legend. He supplies the seafood for every top restaurant in New York. If you eat a lobster in Manhattan, it probably came from Jean-Luc's trucks. "Marco," he boomed, "how was the Vance wedding? Did she pay up? I need my $40,000 for the tuna." I looked at him. I couldn't lie. "She refused to pay, Jean-Luc. She stiffed me. She stiffed all of us." Jean-Luc's face went dark. "She what? She took my tuna and didn't pay?" "She burned the invoice," I said. "I'm going to lose my company, Jean-Luc. I'm sorry. I'll try to pay you back over time." Jean-Luc put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "No, Marco, you are one of us. You treat the food with respect. She treats it like garbage." He pulled out his phone. He opened a WhatsApp group chat. The group was named simply The Table. "Who is in that chat?" I asked. "Everyone," Jean-Luc said grimly. "The Wagyu guy, the caviar guy, the wine importers, the florists, even the high-end event planners. We have a list, Marco, a blacklist. We share the names of clients who don't pay." He typed a message. "Victoria Vance, defaulted on $200K payment, refused to pay Marco. Do not serve." He hit send. "Watch this," Jean-Luc said. Within seconds, replies started popping up. Noted, blocking her number. She called me for the gala next week, canceling her order now. She owes me for flowers from 2019. She is done. I looked at Jean-Luc. A plan started to form in my mind. A plan that was faster and much more painful than a lawsuit. "Jean-Luc," I said, "does she really have a gala next week?" "Yes," Jean-Luc said. "The Ocean Preservation Charity Ball. 500 guests, $5,000 a ticket. It's the biggest event of her season. She needs to look perfect." "And who is catering it?" I asked. "A new guy," Jean-Luc said. "Some young chef from Miami. He doesn't know her reputation yet." "Call him," I said. "Warn him. Tell him to demand 100% payment upfront in cash by tomorrow morning or walk away." Jean-Luc smiled, a wicked French smile. With pleasure. The dominoes were about to fall. The fallout was immediate. The young chef from Miami, after receiving Jean-Luc's warning, called Victoria. He demanded a 100% deposit, wired immediately. Victoria, offended by the audacity of a nobody, fired him on the spot. She thought she could just pick up the phone and call the next chef on the list. She called Imperial Catering, the biggest firm in the city. They told her they were fully booked. She called Events by Andre. They told her their kitchen was undergoing renovation. She called the florist. They told her there was a global shortage of white hydrangeas. It was a lie. All of it. The Blacklist had gone viral within our industry loop. The WhatsApp group, The table was buzzing with screenshots. Every time Victoria reached out to a vendor, they would post it in the chat, and everyone would laugh. Victoria just tried to order 500 lobsters for me. I told her the ocean is closed. She tried to rent linens from my cousin. He quoted her triple the price, and she hung up. For 3 days, Victoria Vance, a woman who could buy a private island, couldn't buy a loaf of bread in New York City. Panic set in. The gala was 48 hours away. 500 of the world's wealthiest people were expecting a Michelin star experience. The tickets cost $5,000 a plate. If she served them nothing, her reputation as a philanthropist would be destroyed. The investors would pull their donations. Her social standing would evaporate. Desperate, she had her assistant start calling vendors in New Jersey and Connecticut, trying to find anyone who didn't know who she was. She finally found a company, Budget Banquets. They usually handled high school proms and office holiday parties. They didn't know about the Blacklist because they weren't part of the luxury circle. They agreed to cater the event, but there was a problem. They didn't have access to A5 Wagyu or bluefin tuna. They worked with frozen chicken breasts and powdered mashed potatoes. Victoria had no choice. She signed the contract. She thought she could hide the quality with expensive wine, but she forgot about the wine. At 10 a.m. on the day of the gala, the wine importer, another friend of Jean-Luc, called Victoria's assistant. "I'm so sorry," the importer said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. "Our delivery truck has broken down on the highway. The vintage Dom Perignon won't make it." "Send another truck," the assistant screamed. "We don't have one. So sorry." So, on the biggest night of her life, Victoria Vance was left with frozen chicken and whatever wine her staff could frantically buy from the local liquor store shelves. The stage was set for a disaster. I didn't attend the gala, but I had eyes inside. One of the waiters working for Budget Banquets was a former student of mine. He sent me updates throughout the night. The guests arrived looking like royalty. Diamonds, tuxedos, politicians, hedge fund managers. They sat down at the tables expecting culinary art. First course, soup. Instead of the planned lobster bisque, they were served a watery vegetable broth that looked like dishwater. It was lukewarm. I heard later that a famous fashion designer took one sip and asked the waiter if this was a prank. Second course, the entree. This was the killer. The frozen chicken breasts were dry, rubbery, and covered in a generic brown sauce that tasted like salt and regret. The mashed potatoes were lumpy. The vegetables were gray, overcooked mush. The room, usually filled with laughter and conversation, grew quiet. Then the whispering started. "Is Victoria broke?" one investor asked, loud enough for others to hear. "I paid $5,000 for cafeteria food?" another complained. Then came the wine. Instead of vintage champagne, the waiters were pouring cheap sparkling wine that cost $12 a bottle. Victoria was running from table to table, sweating through her designer gown, trying to apologize. She blamed the kitchen, she blamed the trucks, but nobody believed her. In this world, you were judged by your hospitality, and she had failed. People started leaving early. Before the charity auction even began, half the room was empty. The donors who stayed kept their checkbooks closed. The gala, which was projected to raise $10 million, barely raised $200,000. At 11 p.m., my phone rang. It was Victoria. I let it ring 3 times. I wanted her to feel the silence. Then I picked up. "Hello?" "Marco?" She sounded broken. Her voice was raspy, like she had been crying. "Please, make it stop." "Make what stop, Victoria?" I asked innocently. "The Blacklist," she sobbed. "I know you did this. Everyone knows. I tried to book a table at Le Bernardin for lunch tomorrow to apologize to a donor, and they told me they don't serve the Vance family. I can't eat in this city anymore. My reputation is ruined. They're calling me the frozen chicken queen on Twitter." "That sounds unfortunate," I said. "What do you want?" she begged. "I'll pay you. I'll pay the invoice." "The price has gone up," I said coldly. "The invoice is $215,000, plus a $50,000 late payment fee, plus a $50,000 reputation restoration fee for my trouble. Total is $315,000. "That's robbery!" she gasped. "No, Victoria, robbery is what you did to me after the wedding. This is the cost of doing business. Wire the money tonight and the embargo ends tomorrow. Don't pay and I'll make sure you can't even get a pizza delivered to your house." She didn't argue. "Send me the wire details," she whispered. 5 minutes later, the notification appeared on my phone. Incoming wire transfer, $315,000. She paid. I immediately transferred the funds to my vendors. I paid the fishermen, the farmers, and the butchers. Then I wrote bonus checks for all my staff who had suffered through that wedding. I texted Jean-Luc. Mission accomplished. She paid in full plus tax. Lift the embargo. Jean-Luc replied with a champagne emoji. Victoria Vance is still rich. Money doesn't disappear that easily. But she is no longer respected. The frozen chicken gala became a legend in New York high society. She stopped hosting events. She keeps a low profile now. As for me, my business exploded. Not because of the food, but because of the story. Other billionaires heard what happened. They realized that I was the one chef who couldn't be bullied. In the luxury world, people respect power. By standing up to Victoria, I proved that my skill was valuable. I learned that being a service worker doesn't mean being a servant. We are artisans. We are experts. And if you sit at our table, you play by our rules. Never let anyone eat your food and disrespect your hand, because a hungry billionaire is just a person with money they can't eat. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story of culinary justice, please like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments, what is the worst meal you've ever been served at a wedding? See you in the next one.